Hey guys, and welcome back. Where I'm going to carry on here is the 328 that I used to put the TZX into. It wasn't just the TZX. I somehow did something to the 12 volt rail in the board. So I did a bit of checking, and they have a 3 amp fuse in them. Tested that, it seemed okay. I could get 5 volts out of the 7805, but when I checked the 12 volt regulator, there was no power out, so there was no 12 volts out, and there was no 12 volts in, or anything, probably about 0.5 of a volt. So I thought, there's got to be something wrong there. So I said, well, I'll replace that anyway, so I took that out. But I checked back, and there's only a couple of smoothing caps and a couple of resistors. There should have been a voltage on the input, and I think they run something like 17 volts or something like that, or 18 volts, to drop it down to 12, because I have a 24 volt AC input, I think it is, to get the plus or minus 12. Anyway, I thought, well, that's a bit weird, so I went back to the fuse again, and I popped the fuse out. And it was a slow blow 3 amp fuse. I put the meter across that, and it was open circuit. How did it get the 5 volts? Anyway, I thought, well, okay, that's not quite right. So I thought, well, I'll replace the regulator. So I put a brand new 7812 in there. And I thought, now I'll put a 3 amp fuse in, and I had a look in my fuse box. Nothing under a 5 amp. And I thought, I'm not putting a 5 amp in there, that's just too dangerous. The 7812s are only 1.5 amps at most before they go. So I thought, what am I going to do? So I had a look around, and I'll have to order some in. And being this close to Christmas, I thought it's going to be at least a couple of weeks. So I ordered those. I thought, well, I'm going to have to wait. Then one of the chappies in our Facebook forum turned around and said he needed a 286, 10, 12 or 16 megahertz processor. He wanted it for something he was doing. And I thought, oh, I've got a couple of those kicking around somewhere, maybe even in a board. But he wanted the FPGA ones, not the pt1-re ones. So I thought, yeah, I think I've got one or two kicking around. So I'll go and have a look. So I went up into the back shed and dug around. And while I was digging around, I didn't find the processor, but I found a bag. And I thought, what's that? That looks like it's got stuff in it. And I had a look, and guess what was in it? Some time ago at the shop, I was doing some 605 expander power supplies that were in the cases. And I had to replace regulators 5 and 3 amp 20 mil. I knew I had them somewhere. But anyway, so I dragged those down, and I've got about 8 of each here, so they're going to go in the fuse box. So what I'm going to do is finish this off, and I put the fuse in, and it powers up fine. 12 volts, 5 volts, the whole lot. But I'm going to, because I had to take it out of the case, and I didn't want to muck around, I cut the old hard wire cable. So I'm going to put a new one on, and I'm going to do it with the Dupont system that I was talking about. And this will have two 12-way Dupont plugs to go on the angled header, and then I'm going to put the male ends of the pins crimped onto the cable, and then bend them and solder the pins into the holes on the keyboard. Makes it a lot nicer and easier to do. The soldering wires into the keyboard, I found, got a bit messy and wasn't very good. So I thought doing it this way, it'll make it a nice job, and it's going to be easier to solder. This is what I'm going to do. When I've done that, then I will do some other videos. Whether they all get mashed together into one, we will see. But there's lots to do. The HDMI into the back of the other Spectra video's got to be done. The version 1 boards for the Tang Nanos. And some other little bits and pieces I've got to do here. So anyway, we will do this one. I like to try and keep these about 40 minutes at the most, or less. We'll see how we go. Alright guys, so grab yourself a drink, something to snack on, and a seat of course. Even have a laugh with me if you like, I tend to. And we'll get on with it. Okay guys, so this is the Spectra video that I took keyboard off. I cut the keyboard nut off. I've desoldered the ribbon cable across here. So what you can see up here is that's the Tang Nano. I've got to wait for the Nano board to come in to replace that and do that up. What I did is, I'll just show you. That's the regulator, and that's the fuse I replaced off the board, and this is now working fine. But what I did is, I'm just using this to hold the wire while I soldered it, so I can actually take that out of the way now. It's a nice bit of weight in that, and I can screw it and clamp the wire so I can move it around. This is the 5-volt regulators I was telling you about, the little 5-volt regulators. What I ended up doing is I put a 4-pin header on that, where the holes are. It made it easier to solder onto the wires on the bottom, because what I had to do is adjust the voltage on this, because it was set to 12 volts. I'll just show you. I'll get one out of the packet. So when they come, they're all on here. And you see those little round silver pieces up this end? They're a variable resistor. And so you adjust those for the voltage that you need. Now I said to them I want 5 volt, 12 volt and 5 volt out. And that's what they reckon they sent me. But these are not. These are adjustable. Be aware when you order stuff like that. I have actually seen other people that have ordered stuff. In our group there was a guy that had that. He ordered some 60mm PC case fans. They sent him 80s. And when he queried it, they said, oh, sorry, we were out of stock of the 80s, so the 60, so we sent you 80s. Not what I asked for. They gave him a refund, so he's got some 80mm fans. So I had to do that. On the base of this, that's why I've got these yellow and the red wire on there. The yellow I used is earth, as you can see here. I got it on the earth. And the red, I've got going to red. And I had those going to my multimeter, onto the leads of my multimeter. Had it on voltage, and I adjusted the resistor on the end of the regulator here until I got just over 5 volts, about 5.1 I think it was, which will be fine for the output into the Tang Nano. It's not drawing a lot of current, so it shouldn't fluctuate much. Got all that set, and then I put the fuse back into here, checked that I had 12 volts on the board, on the output and on the earth, so I checked that I had 12 volts here. Then I plugged this in, not into the Tang Nano, just plugged this in, this board in, and then I checked the voltage out to make sure that it was getting the 5 volts out, and it was, and that was fine. So then I plugged it into the Tang Nano, and you say, how did you blow the board? Well, on this Nano is where the 5 volts comes in, and that's the one I'm feeding the power into. I am going to put a mini B down here because I want to make the cable up so they all come out one end, and so this one will actually feed the Nano. So what I did is I put the 12 volts down through here. Now all the lights come on and stay on constantly. I'm picking it's pretty much toast. So I've ordered another one in. I may pull this off and try connecting it with the USB into a PC and see if I can get any life out of it. I don't hold out any hopes. But that's what I'm waiting for that. So that's been waited. What I'm going to do is this. I'm also going to do a Dupont on this one here, the little one between the cassette and video out port to the board as well. I'm going to make the cable up first, and then because I still have to pull the keyboard out of the case to take the rest of the cabling off and to put the Dupont ribbon cable onto it, and I've got to put the angled connector on here. But as I said, I did this one earlier. Well, I did it because I had to replace the regulator. And I will just pop so you can have a look. I haven't done the 5 volt on this, I've only done the 12. Now if I bring it up, I don't know if you can really see that, but that's the 5 volt, and it looks like quite a mess down across the pins. It's more so I can see it quite badly. But the 12 volt that I replaced, I put new heat compound and that on it, and it's a lot nicer. So I'm not, and then this one, it's working 5 volts okay. So whether someone's had these in and out, I don't know. But anyway, the fuse was over here, of course. Some people will find that they will have check your fuses. Some of the early Spectra videos only had like a half or a 1 amp fuse, and any more than the cassette deck plugged into it, the draw, because if you read the documentation, it says it only puts out around 100 or 200 milliamps on 12 volt. So if this is 3 amp fuse is actually running the 12 volt side of the system, this can pull 1.5 amps. So if it's only putting out a couple of 100 milliamps at the most, why have they got a 3 amp fuse in there if it's only running the 12 volt side? Considering when this was blowing, I still had 5 volts. I don't know. I digress. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a header pin on here, make up a cable, and you'll see me when I do the keyboard. I'll desolder all this stuff out. I won't put it on video because you've seen it before. I can put you onto the previous ones I did where I took the cable off and that, so I will link that in this description. Put it all together and you'll see me. I'll show you putting the Dupont system on and doing the cable and that sort of thing. Alright guys, so I will get on and do that. And I'll let you listen to some music unless something interesting comes up. Oh, and these are, as I said, I found some packs of fuses. These are them. There's a 3 and a 4 amp, and I think that's what they used in the 605s and the 601 expanders. So get them in. Oh God, sorry. Get them in focus. So that's those there. So those will go up into me fuse holder box, and I'll put those in there. I will carry on with this. I'll get everything ready. I'll put the stuff out of the way that I don't need for now. I think I will probably desolder this piece first. Put the header pin on here and on here, and then I'll make the cables up to go across those two, because I've got to do the one on the keyboard. We'll see. Alright, so anyway, I'll be back to you shortly and we'll get on with it. Okay guys, so I'm all ready to start doing this now, and as you've seen me do this before, just for those that haven't seen it on the other videos, I will put a link in the description on this, but I use my desoldering gun. If I find it's a little bit hard to desolder some of these pads, I will use the hot air to actually warm this up and then desolder them. Alright, but you can see that all on my other videos, which I'll put a link into. So I'm just going to get on and do these and desolder all these wires out, and then get on with the part that I want to do, which is to make the cables net up. Alrighty, so we'll see you soon. Okay, so as you can see on here, the cable's generally in two parts. So I'll desolder one part of the cable, then on the back here you will find there's the glue. Pick off all the glue, and then I'd work one cable out. If any of them are still slightly catching, I'll desolder those or heat those up with the iron and pop those out, and I'll take that half out. It's just easier than trying to do the whole thing at once and tearing a pad or something like that. So the other thing that can happen with these is the glue, like this has been done differently. This is a softer glue. So to take this off, I'm going to have to use the heat gun, and I will heat the bottom of the ribbon up, not too hot, just hot enough so it's soft, and then pull it off. And then I will do the other side the same when I desolder it, and later on I will then get like a blade, a Stanley knife blade or something, or a box cutter blade, and clean all the glue off the bottom of the board. So I'll get on and do that. And as you see there, it comes out really easily when you warm it up, because that's just done with like a hot glue. It's not a very nice stuff, but this is the way they used to hold them in without them falling out. So what I'll do is I'll desolder this other side, and then once I've desoldered, I'll do the same, heat it up and pop that one out as well. As you see with the desoldering gun, you can desolder the wires quite tidily. So I'll get on and do this other one. Alrighty. And as I was saying before, is that I just use a blade, box cutter blade, and I'll go along and I'll clean this off. So it's not that hard to do. You know, you just go along and you're just trying to get the glue out of there. It should be still a little bit warm from when you took the ribbon cable out, so it shouldn't be too hard to do. But as you can see, it's not a big job. The only thing you might do is when you take it off, just make sure the holes are clear and that none of the glue is in the holes, because otherwise it's going to make it harder to put the header pins in. Alrighty. Alright, so we will get on and take the one off the baseboard now, and then we'll check all the holes and make sure they're all clear. Alrighty. One thing to do, if you do get a bit of glue down these holes, is I usually get a pin off a header. So I'll grab an old strip of header pin that's too short for something. I'll pull one of the pins out of it, put it in a set of pliers, and then from the solder side, put it in the hole and push it down, and that will push the glue out of the hole on the other side. So if you don't want to drag the glue back down, you just pull it straight up and out, and that'll clean the hole out. And so any of those holes that may have it in, you push it in through that side, pull it out the other, and by looking along the holes you'll actually see if there are any that have glue in them. The holes should naturally clear when you put the angled header pin on this, but it can sometimes make it hard to solder on the solder side if you push the glue through, because it can mix in and cause problems with the flux. But it is totally up to you if you want to do that or not. I just find it makes it a nicer job. So you can do what you like. You can just push the header pin through, and hopefully you know, you don't have any issues with it, or fire some flux in there and hopefully that'll fix the problem. But as I say, I just tend to find this makes it a tidier job. It just unblocks everything. Sometimes you find they can be quite tight. The holes mightn't be fully clear as well, and you get glue in there, and it just makes life so much harder to get the header connector in there to solder it in. So that's one of the things, you know, that I find easy. The other thing to remember about the keyboard is there's 25 connectors here, but it only uses 24. It doesn't use the very first one on the outside. This one is not connected. So you come in one and then you go pin 1 to pin 24, so the last one. Or if you want to, you can go pin 25 to pin 2. It's up to you which way you want to count them. But that's just one thing to remember. They don't use all the 25 pins. The pin 1 is not connected at all. So just to remember that, guys. So you don't sort of wire it up. I did that on the first one I did, and I corrected it. I wondered why I was having intermittent errors on the keyboard, and I'd actually wired it from pin 1 to pin 24 instead of from pin 2 to pin 25. So I wondered why I had one wire left over that wasn't going anywhere, and I thought, what's going on here? And that's what it was. So just be aware of that, and just make sure you don't fall into the same trap. It doesn't do anything to the keyboard or to the PC. It just mucks up the keyboard array and sends the wrong signals to what keys you're pressing and what you're doing. So that looks good now, so that one's done. I will put that one aside, and I'll get on to doing the other short one. Alright guys. Okay, so if you do get some of that horrible glue stuck in the holes on the top side of these boards, because they're only soldered underneath, you'll find you can't get your header pins in. So if they're blocked up on the top side of these boards, what you can do is you get your little pin you pulled out of your header, and just get it ready in your pliers. Get your hot air gun if you've got one, and just gently heat this side up for about 10 seconds, 8 seconds. You're just softening the glue is all you're doing. If you do that, and then when it's soft, you just take your pin on the other side of the board, put it into the hole that's blocked, and just gently push it, and it will go through the board. And then come on the other side of your board and pull it out, and that will unblock the hole for you. And you go through and do as many of those as you need to do. If it gets hard and you can't do it, just take your hot air gun again and just gently heat that area up. Not as long, because the board will still be warm, and just heat it up that little bit, and then put it through and empty out the other ones. And then you'll find you'll have nice good holes all the way through that you can put your header pin on and then solder through to. So just an easier way of doing it if you need to. And I mean, it's a sacrifice of one pin, so if you remember where you put it, you can stick it there and grab it the next time. If you're like me and you don't know where it is, you just get another one. So that's done. I've just got to clean up the glue on this one, and then I've just got to make the cables up and put the header pins on. Okay, so I'm getting ready now to make up these cables. So what I've done is just found some old ribbon cable I got in a load of gear, and I try to keep some of these sort of weird plugs. These are 25 pin parallel port ribbon cable connection plugs. So I try to keep these, because you never know when you're going to use them or need them in retro one. And this one had a male and 2 females. So I took the female off one end, because this piece of cable is going to be miles longer than what I'm going to need. So I thought, well, I'll do that, and then I can make the one for the keyboard, and then I can make the one for the video cassette audio to the main board out of the same cable. I thought, well, what I will do is we will go along and I will crimp up the male end, and then what I can do is I can solder it into the keyboard and then work out how long a cable I need. The other thing I could also do is I could probably grab the other keyboard that I've already done this on the one that's having the HDMI put in it, and work out the length off of that one. It's be the same length anyway. So I mean, I could do either one or two ways, but I need to put the connectors on this end, and then I need to cut it and put connectors on the other. So we'll get on and do that. And there you go, that's one done. As you can see, it's going to be a nicer connector to put on and take off, rather than having the ones where you solder onto the headers on them. So yeah, I think it's going to be a tidier way of doing it. I might just have to make that one a wee bit wider so I can actually get it to bend around. So yeah, but I think that'll be fine. Carry on. Okay guys, so I've finished that there. So that's the little short one to go from the video board to the main board. And I did originally want to get these with longer connectors, but the kit only came with up to 10s. 12s would have done this really good, but then this one's a 13. So I've used an 8 and a 5, and I've used 2 10s and a 4 on this. So what I may end up doing is putting coloured dots on these, and then I'll put coloured dots on the boards next to the connector, maybe. Just in case someone pulls it off, they know how it goes back on. Alright, so those two are done, and as you can see, plenty of cable left, so that can go back in the drawer for now. And these are all sorted. I'll clean the mess up off the bench. Those are just the leftover shards from the back of the connectors. Those are my headers to go on the boards. The next thing I'll do is solder up these male pin, or crimp up, sorry, these male pins on the other ends. Alrighty, so I will get on with that and we'll get these done. So what you can see is I've done the first cable. So these are the male ends, and the way they go into the board is they're going to be a little bit close. So what I've done is I've actually put them into their header, into header connectors to go into the board. So that'll just insulate and stop them shorting. It makes them the right width for the board as well. I'm going to do the same with the keyboard end, and if you find you have problems stripping the ribbon cable, just use your blade and just give it a gentle score down that in between lines, and what that'll do is it'll put a mark there, and then when you go to tear it, it comes very, very easy. So sometimes you'll get it where it's not, and it'll be a real pain to try and get it to start or to get it to tear straight. So just a little bit of pressure and just gently run down the line as long as you need it. And that's all you do, and then just go along and peel them all off. And when I'm cutting them for these Dupont connectors or JST connectors, is I'm only taking about 5mm off the end of the wire. So I'm only trimming off a very small amount, and it's only enough so it will go inside the crimping connector. The other part of the crimp connects onto the plastic sleeve of the wire, so that it actually makes a physical bond to it, so it won't come off. So that's why I only do a little bit, so it goes in. It's got plenty to go on the shroud to crimp onto. Alright, so that's how you do them anyway, so it's easy enough to do. So I'll carry on and do this one. And then the only other thing we've got to do with not this set, but this set, is with these, is then I'm going to bend them at a 90-degree angle so they go into the keyboard. And then I solder these into the keyboard. And when I turn it over, then I can just trim the pins off if they stick through too far. So, but on this one, which goes from the video to the main board, I don't need it because they're upright pins on both sides. So I don't need to worry about that. Alright, so I'm going to carry on and do this, and I'll finish cutting this one off and making this one up the same as that. And then I'll come back to you and show you how I bend the ends over on those. It's very simple, but I'll show you anyway. And these male Duponts are pretty much the same as the female. The other thing you may see me do and ask why I get them, and it's where the crimp goes around the plastic. I give them a little tweak to square them up straight, because 9 times out of 10, when they're made out of the factory, they're splayed out slightly wider than what will fit into the jaws of the crimp, and I find it's really hard to get them in there. So I find if I give them a gentle nudge in and line them up square a little bit more, I can slide them and put them in there a lot easier and lock them in. So I can do it 1, 2 clicks, and that's going to stay in there now. It's not going to come out. And then I can strip my wire, twist the ends together, slide it in, get it in the hole, and make sure it's right, and then crimp it. And I don't have to worry about this falling out anywhere. So that's why I do it. Doing it the other way, you can't get them in quite square. They go on an angle, and so that's why I like to do that. But it's up to you. If you find it's easy enough to do without doing that, then you can do it your way, but I just find that makes it easier. And as you see, it just makes stripping these easier by putting that slit down, that gentle slit down one side. It just makes it easy stripping these off. Once you get these long enough, you can pull them to tear them the rest of the way down. You just got to be careful that you don't tear the insulation off the side of the wires. That's why I find just run the blade down gently to score it, and then it will tear. Alright, so I'll carry on. Okay guys, as you can see, I've got both the cables all set up and done now. I'll put the males on both ends, and I'll put the connectors on them as well. If I'm going to look at making these up, I will probably buy in the correct length headers for both, and then that way they won't be in pieces, they'll actually be one long unit. So if I decide to do that, I will make them up that way, but for this one I'm just doing it that way. These are the headers I need to put on the boards. So that's the next piece I've got to do. So I'll put these aside, I'll get the board out. I'll do the little one first. I think I will stick that one in and set that one up, and then I'll do the header for the big board, solder the ribbon cable into the keyboard. Alrighty, so I will move these aside, I'll get the boards, and we'll go ahead and put those in. Okay guys, so here we are. I've got the small board. This is the one with the cassette port on it, and as you can see, the connectors are on the bottom of the board, not on the top, but it has labelled on the top what each of the connectors underneath are for the cassette port. That's really handy. The other thing is put the header pins in. There was probably a wee bit of glue on the top, so it was a little bit tight, but just had to wiggle them and then they popped through. So I pushed that into there. That's the male pins are in here. They are a little bit long, so I'll trim those off after I solder them. And those are the headers to go onto the other board, on the main board, when I put the straight up header pin in it. So anyway, I will get on with this and solder this together, and then I'll bring the other board over and put the header pins on that. Do that. We'll put the angle connector on the main board as well, and then we'll put the main header on the keyboard. Alrighty, get on with it. done is I'll put those plugs on. I had to turn it off there for a minute, and that's is I couldn't get this in for some reason, and some of that hot melt had gone down inside the wires, so I had to muck around with some very fine nosed tweezers to try and get as much of it out of the little holes as I could. Then what I did is I used the hot air. I pushed it so that it'd sit there. Then I got a block of wood, put it down, and then I turned it over, and I heated up the underside of it for a wee bit, then turned it over, and then with a pair of pliers I went over each pin and just gently pressed down, and they slid down into the holes. And so once that was all done, then I could flip it over, and I just checked to make sure there was no crap on the connectors, and then I've just soldered it up. The other bits on here was, I noticed there was some old flux on here from original, and it was going a bit black, so I decided I'd just give the board a clean while I'm at it. So that's what I've done, you know. It doesn't take that much longer to do it. I had to do down here anyway, so I just cleaned all the rest of that up and just checked everything, made everything looks okay. So this is all done. That board's all done. I put the earthing pin on here, so this was actually physically soldered to the board down here. And so what I had to do is, the hole in here was a little bit small as well, so all they did is they soldered through the two holes that were here and just soldered the wire to it, so it was solid all the way through. So again, I just heated it up with the hot air and then pushed this on, and it went, and you saw it went straight through. So then what I did is turned around and pushed it back so it was about to the right height, and soldered it, and then just slipped the plastic piece back on it. It was a bit of fiddling around, but that's where these little surgical suture pliers are really good, because they'll lock on, hold on, then you can wiggle it around and get it on. And then once I started it, I just put it over the very top so there's enough room to get around the pin, and just slide it back down. So that's all good to go, and that's what that'll plug into now for the earth. So that's all done, that's all done, that's done. So now all we've got to do is the keyboard. So I'll now grab the keyboard and I will do that. It's more of the same. The only different things I've got to do is, rather than straight through pins, I've got to bend them 90 degrees. That's the only difference with it. The other thing I'll have to do, I noticed the keyboard membrane was quite grubby, the grey one. So I thought, well, I'll give that a clean, and you've seen that done on the original one anyway. That's easy to do. So I'll clean all that beforehand, and then what we'll do is we'll come back to putting the ribbon cable in for the keyboard. Alright. Well guys, so this is going to take a little bit longer than I thought. What I'm doing is splitting it into two parts and finishing off the keyboard and the video of the machine finished at the very end in the second part. So hopefully you like to tag along with me on the second part on this, and I hope you're enjoying what I'm doing, and you can see that it makes a lot better and a lot nicer job. If it's something you're looking at wanting to do, I may look at doing kits to do this later on. Give me a yell, or you can contact me on Facebook through the New Zealand Vintage Computer group on there under my name. So yeah, just jump on and introduce yourself, and we can go from there. I will ship around the world, but the problem being is the cost. Unless you want a few of them, then cost wise it's not going to be very viable to do so. But I'm more than willing to help out where I can. Or if you don't want to do the job yourself, see, you'd have to pull the boards out, so you'd have to send me the machine. If you send me the machine, then I can do the keyboard for you as well. If you're going to go down that track and you want to put the HDMI or VGA into the machine, then what I can do is I can remove your processor and do that. Then I can put in a socket for one of the Tang Nano VDPs for you. And if you want me to build your VDP or that, let me know. I will get a few more in to make up a few more units, because I have a couple that I want to do, and one of them is a Coleco Atom, and I also have a Coleco Vision. So I want to do both of those, and they both run the 9918 992829 chips. So I want to do that to those, so then I don't have to worry about the NTSC side of it. So there'll be future videos coming up after I finish off all the Spectre video stuff here, guys. If you need to, drop me a message, send me in the descriptions below, drop me a line, ask me a question. I will get back to you, I always do. Until part 2, see you next time. Ciao.